I love snakes, but they get a really bad rap. So I want to make a video in defense of snakes. I want to try to see if I can better their reputation by telling you guys a little bit more about them. I think that education and knowledge is the best way to fight unfounded fears and particularly the claim that snakes are gross or that they're somehow like people think that snakes are slimy. They think all these things about snakes, and they're like one of people's biggest fears. Like, the like idea of like a pit of snakes. I think that that would be so cool to like go into like a ball pit because snakes feel so cool against your skin. And they're just so cool and their scales are so smooth. So I guess I want to start with by telling you guys like what a snake is. So what is a snake? Snakes belong to the order Squamata, which is the larger group that is said to hold all of the scaled reptiles, which doesn't really make sense to me because turtles are like excluded. Like things with scales do not count as scaled reptiles. They have to be completely covered in like keeled scales, I guess. So it includes like lizards, snakes, iguanas, tuataras. That's it, like groups the like Squamata and Lepidosauria. That's what you're looking at. But snakes are actually a specialized group of legless lizards. Snakes are just one of the many things that evolved to be a legless tube, which they think like helps to move around in burrows underground. I have fossorial or like burrowing snakes in the hognose, which are so cute. And it also is like sometimes an adaptation for swimming or moving around in dense vegetation like you see in like the tree snakes and like the arboreal species. Snakes evolved in the Jurassic period around 150 million years ago. The earliest examples are things like Najesh. They went through the same process as whales did, where they lost their forelimbs first and they retained their hind limbs for a long time. And actually, boas and pythons still have what are called spurs, which are like a vestigial femur bone, which still like pokes out, like they still have what's left of their femurs, and they stick out like little claws right by their like little pelvis. And so I have on my ball python, she has spurs, and I think that it's just the coolest little like thing to show people, and then they like no one guesses that those are her femurs, like that's what's left of her legs. So I just think that that's really cool. But I specifically with snakes, it's not just because there are legless lizards. So it's not just that they're legless that makes because all snakes are lizards, just in the same way that like all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. All snakes are lizards, but not all lizards are snakes. And being legless is not the only criteria. There are legless lizards. Really, what makes a snake is its skull. The classic snake skull, their jaw is very unique. They don't dislocate their jaw like most people think. They just can open their jaws very wide, and then their mandible, their jawbone, it's not ossified together in the middle here. It's connected by a little ligament, and so it's flexible, so they can walk their jaw independently. If you watch any of my feeding videos, you'll see how the snakes do that. It's really interesting. I'll try to put up an example here. But when the so the and then the snakes, they also don't have external ears. Their ears and their hearing is actually really interesting. Hearing is really important for how snakes understand and navigate the world, but they don't hear in the same way that we do. Their ear bones are fused to their skeleton, and so they hear much lower frequency vibrations. They basically hear through their like the vibrations that come up through their ribs, and they hear for like vibrations in the ground around them, which is much more. effective for them being like that they're often underground than having ears and hearing anyways.
So within the order Reptilia, there's Squamata, and then within Squamata, there's Serpentes, which is all of the true snakes. That means that snakes are reptiles, and because of that, they're cold blooded, so they have a low metabolism. They eat very infrequently, and so that translates to them being super easy to care for. Snakes eat more frequently when they're younger, and so the little ones eat like once a week, and then they start eating like once every 2 weeks to like once a month. The largest snakes eat like once every 6 months, so you feed them like twice a year. And besides that, you just water them like they're plants, and they have their little tanks, and as long as you get them set up right, they are so stable and happy. It's everything that you could want in a pet. Is the ease of care is insane. I don't even have to look for someone to take care of my pets when I'm gone, and they don't get lonely, but they're still so fun to interact with and handle. You can socialize them, you can get to know them. They each have little personalities. They have interesting behaviors. They're fun to watch, and people are interested in them. Hearing like when people hear I have snakes, they're interested. They ask questions. Not everyone has them, but more people should. They make wonderful pets, and they're they live for a really long time because they're reptiles. For even though they're so small, such small animals, they can live for a surprisingly long time. They have a very low metabolism. My ball python will live for around 30 years. My hognose will live for about 20 years. They're just wonderful pets, and they're quiet, they're easy, they're chill, they just hang out with you. They're great companions, and they're they just I just think that they're so cute and cool and so interesting. People want to hear about them. I brought them into show and tell. People love to see them. And one of the most rewarding things for me is keeping them is when someone who is afraid of snakes sees my snakes and then they start to like them. They change their opinion. Their like heart softens, and they'll start to think that my snakes are cute, and they'll see how like friendly and chill my snakes are, and they'll start to change their mind. And when they do, it's just so rewarding. It's like heartwarming to see that like my snakes can win them over. And then I do snakes admittedly when they are hissing and like trying to scare you, and they're feeling scared, they're like doing their defensive behaviors. Like the hognoses can hood up like a cobra, they can play dead if they really get scared. There's some really interesting defensive behaviors that they have, but it can really be there's a like deeply ingrained fear in us of like serpents. And so when they're hissing and striking, even for like me, and like I'm not afraid of them at all, but I'll jump sometimes, and like you'll just feel the adrenaline. Like, but they're so cute. Just look at them. They're adorable, and I mean, how could you not love them if you spend time around them? And then once you have them, how could you not get more?